You've probably heard this a million times, right? That we have to choose. Either we grow our economy or we save the planet. But what if that's not the real choice? Today, we're going to dive into this idea of sustainability and see how it tries to connect the dots between making a profit and, keeping our world healthy.
For years, this was the big fight. It was always framed as this simple choice: a booming economy or a healthy environment. But is it really that simple? Is it just one or the other? That's the huge question we're going to try and unpack here.
All right, so before we can even talk about a solution, we have to get on the same page about the problem. The one thing that really kicked this entire global conversation into high gear, our warming planet. So what is global warming, really? When you boil it all down, it's a pretty clear cause and effect relationship. We burn fossil fuels like oil and coal, that releases greenhouse gases, and those gases trap heat, causing temperatures to rise. This scientific understanding is, well, it's the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. So, how did the world first try to tackle this? Well, let's jump back to the 90s. The global community came together and made a pretty big move. First, they set 1990 as the starting line, the baseline for emissions. Then, in 1997, they signed the Kyoto Protocol, and the goal was super clear. By 2010, they wanted to cut emissions by 5% from where they were back in 1990. But, and this is a big but, right away, this global plan ran into a huge roadblock. For a lot of businesses, the thinking was really simple and direct. Hold on, making these changes is going to cost us money. This one idea, that protecting the planet is bad for business, became this massive point of tension that, honestly, we're still debating today.
So, that constant push and pull between costs and the environment, that's what forced people to start thinking differently, to look for another way. And that search led to this really powerful new way of looking at things, the idea of sustainability.
Now, this is super important. Sustainability is not just about being green. It's a whole new way of thinking about how our economy should even work. It all comes down to one simple but really powerful question. Can we keep doing this forever? If the answer is no, if what we're doing is causing damage we can't undo, then by definition, it just isn't sustainable.
Think about it like this. The old way of doing business was often focused on short-term profits. What's going to happen this quarter or this year? Sustainability forces us to zoom out and take a much, much longer view. It says that the health of our society and our environment aren't just nice-to-haves. They're absolutely essential for any kind of long-term success.
Okay, but here's where it gets messy. It's a really thorny question. What about global development? I mean, how can we ask developing nations to slow down their growth when they're just trying to get the same standard of living that other parts of the world have had for decades?
And honestly, there are no easy answers here. You've got a few different camps. One side says, look, the math just doesn't work. The planet's resources are limited, and there isn't enough for everyone to live like the developed world does now. But then others argue that technology is the answer. Things like wind power, or even more controversial stuff like nuclear energy, could let us grow without destroying everything.
Okay, so we've been talking about these huge big-picture ideas. But how does any of this actually work for a real business on a Monday morning? Well, that's where this really practical tool comes into play, the triple bottom line.
This is the key question it tries to solve. If you're running a company and your goal isn't just to make money, how do you keep score? What do you even measure to know if you're succeeding?
And the answer a lot of people landed on is this thing called the triple bottom line, or TBL for short. It's basically a framework that forces a company to look at its impact in 3 different areas. And here's the kicker. It's not just about the good stuff you add, but it's also about being honest about the value you might be destroying.
So what are these 3 bottom lines? You've probably heard the catchphrase, people, profit, and planet. It's as simple as that. It's a company's impact on society, on the economy, and on the environment. The idea is to track your performance across all 3, not just how much money you made.
The whole point here is that it's not about trading one for the other. The triple bottom line says that real success, true success, is about creating value in all 3 areas at the same time. It totally changes the definition of what it means to be a successful business.
But hang on, there's one more layer to this, and it's maybe the most important takeaway of all. It turns out that even with these 3 bottom lines, they're not all created equal. There's one that underpins everything else, the ultimate bottom line.
It's like there's a pecking order. Think about it. Our society needs a functioning economy to thrive, right? And what does that economy need to function? Well, it depends completely on a stable, healthy global ecosystem.
And that right there is the big reveal. The health of the planet isn't just another box to check off a list. It's the foundation for the other 2.
Without a healthy planet, you can't have a healthy economy for long. And without that, you can't have a healthy society. That is the ultimate bottom line.
So that leaves us with a pretty huge question to chew on. If the health of our ecosystem is the real foundation of everything, how does that totally change what we even mean by the word success? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.